What is 2 plus 2? Did you say 4? No. 2 plus 2 equals 5. And it equals 5 because I said it equals 5. So you will adhere. You will say that 2 plus 2 equals 5. You will not resist. You will be broken down. If you go around saying 2 plus 2 equals 4, you will be labeled as dangerous. You will be labeled as hateful. You will be censored. You will be eliminated. 2 plus 2 equals 5 because what the authoritarian regime dictates 2 plus 2 equals is what you will adhere to. That is a scene out of George Orwell's 1984. And I'm reminded of this when I see Josh Hawley's interaction with this woke professor, with this professor who's a useful idiot for Marxism, whether she realizes it or not.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to all of the witnesses for being here. Before I want to visit with you, Ms. Mansky, but before I do, I just want to clear one thing up. Professor Bridges, you said several times, you've used a phrase, I want to make sure I understand what you mean by it. You've referred to people with a capacity for pregnancy. Would that be women?
Many women, cis women, have the capacity for pregnancy. Many cis women do not have the capacity for pregnancy. There are also trans men who are capable of pregnancy, as well as non-binary people who are capable of pregnancy.
So this isn't really a women's rights issue.
We can recognize that this impacts women while also recognizing that it impacts other groups. Those things are not mutually exclusive, Senator Hawley.
Oh.
So notice she uses the term cis women, which just applies to the average woman. 99.99% of women. But since trans women have that adjective, trans, and in front of the name, well, then we can't just say women, for equality. Then there's trans women and cis women, not just women, no, cis women. I mean, this is so utterly stupid and insane. The vast majority of people can hear, but there are some people that don't hear. We call them deaf people. So for the people that can hear, should we refer to them as hearing people? Don't just say people, hearing people.
So your view is that the core of this right then is about what?
So I want to recognize that your line of questioning is transphobic, and it opens up trans people to violence by not recognizing them.
Wow, you're saying that I'm opening up people to violence by asking whether or not women are the folks who can have pregnancies?
So I want to note that 1 out of 5 transgender persons have attempted suicide.
To see people like this exploiting trans suicide, exploiting the deaths of trans people, exploiting them to push their ridiculous agenda that has nothing to do with trans people. The average trans person does not think the way this professor does. They understand they identify as something different than what they are biological. They're not insane. They have gender dysphoria. They have this condition where they have to identify. It's not a choice. It's not a whim. They must identify as a different sex than what they were born with. It's absolutely real, but that doesn't mean they're completely irrational or insane and don't know the reality that, yes, they identify as something that what their biological sex is. And these people are so patronizing to the trans community to insinuate that they must be lied to or they're going to jump off a cliff. This woman and the people like her are just such despicable, disgusting people. They're exploiting the trans community. They're trying to steal their voice. And the trans community is a very small percentage of the population. It's very rare for people to be trans. And this is probably a reason why they're doing it, because they can get away saying, oh, we're protecting trans people, and most people don't even know anyone who's trans, and so, oh, wow, this is oh, they're protecting the trans community. They're not. It's so disgusting what they're doing.
So I think it's important
Because of
for
my
us-
line of questioning? So
Because-
we can't talk about it?
because denying that trans people exist and pretending not to know that they exist
I'm
is
denying that trans
dangerous.
people exist by
Are
asking
you?
you if you're
Are
talking
you?
about women
Are you?
having pregnancies.
Do you believe that men can get pregnant?
No, I don't think women can
So
get
you are
pregnant.
denying that trans people exist?
By her line of questioning and reasoning, she's denying that biological sex exists. Biological sex doesn't exist. What somebody identifies as changes their biology. If a man identifies as a woman, then they're a biological woman. If a woman identifies as a man, they're a biological man, and men can get pregnant. Biological men, biological women. Men and women is the greatest truth we have. There's an estimated 8 billion people on this planet. Every single one of them is a result of a biological man, a biological woman. And their parents, each one of them, are the result, biological man, biological woman, for humans, for all animals, going back millions of years. Men and women is the greatest truth we have. And identity doesn't change that. A trans man is a biological woman, which is the reason they can have babies. Biological men can't have babies, even if they identify as a woman. If I identify as a woman, it doesn't mean that I can get pregnant. So by her rationale, oh, you're saying men can't get pregnant. You're denying trans people exist. No. Josh Hawley is recognizing the reality, as any sane person would, that biology exists. Men and women, biological, exists. And identity doesn't change that. If a kid identifies as a dinosaur, that doesn't make them a dinosaur.
And that leads to violence. Is this how you run your classroom? Are students allowed to question you, or are they
Absolutely.
also treated like this, where
No,
they're
they're
told
allowed
that
to
they're
question.
opening up people to violence?
We have a good
by
time in my
questioning?
class. You should join.
Oh, I bet.
You might learn a lot.
Wow, I would learn a lot. I've learned a lot
I
just in this
know,
exchange.
absolutely.
Extraordinary.
Yep.
So by simply stating the greatest truth we have, Josh Hawley is transphobic and he's advocating his words are violence. 2 + 2 = 5. Listen to this. This is somebody who was with the KGB who defected to the United States, talking about tactics. Not quick military tactics, but the tactics on how to demoralize a country. Listen to what he's saying, and everything you see around you going on with society makes sense.
But in reality, the main emphasis of the KGB is not in the area of intelligence at all. According to my opinion and opinion of many defectors of my caliber, only about 15% of time, money, and manpower is spent on espionage as such. The other 85% is a slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The result you can see. Most of the people who graduated in the 60s, dropouts or half-baked intellectuals, are now occupying the positions of power in the government, civil service, business, mass media, educational system. You are stuck with them. You cannot get rid of them. They are contaminated. They are programmed to think and react to certain stimuli in a certain pattern. You cannot change their mind, even if you expose them to authentic information, even if you prove that white is white and black is black, you still cannot change the basic perception and the logic of behavior. In other words, these people, the process of demoralization is complete and irreversible. To get rid society of these people, you need another 20 or 15 years to educate a new generation of patriotically minded and common sense people who would be acting in favor and in the interests of the United States society.